take just a minute and address why I have not made a video since Friday. I wanted to talk about the fact that my mother has passed away and that I went to her funeral and the interment, and this is why I was unable to make a video. I had hoped that I was going to be able to make a video during that time, but among other things, out of respect for my mom and visitation with my family, I felt like it was more important for me to do this at that point in time. I also wanted to take just a second to wish my second oldest brother a happy birthday. I'm not going to say what birthday it is for him, but happy birthday, Chris. Today I want to talk about a subject that is sort of a mirror of a video that I did in past where I talked about why leave. And in this one I'm going to talk about the idea of why come on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Monday the 10th of August of 2021. As I say, my brother's birthday. Thank you to everyone who's here on Rumble on the podcast on YouTube. Welcome. And thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and read my notes real quick, and then we're going to get on with discussing the subject at hand. In one of my previous editions, I asked the question, why leave? In this one, I ask the opposing question, why come? As folks have pointed out, in many countries, the population is largely homogeneous, all from the same or from 2 or 3 different cultures, and that's pretty much it. If you tried to make the same assertion about the United States, anybody not living in a small town somewhere would consider you insane. I'm not in my notes, but I will point out that I do know places that are more cultural melting pots. That having been said, the United States as a whole is probably the biggest cultural melting pot I know, and really very well, lots of people in it and so forth. In this country, we don't just have people from a variety of countries. For goodness sakes, there used to be and maybe still is, a pretty large Hmong community in Seattle, Basques in the Idaho mountains, and Romani, that is, people who are referred to as gypsies, in Tacoma, Washington. There are literally first-generation people from around the world here. North Koreans, even Chinese, are far less likely to see foreigners, and when they do, they'll generally be, quote, escorted by, quote, watchers. If you question the difference, you should visit even more permissive countries around the world. You may question why Cubans, Mexicans among many, I'm not talking about just those, but would literally risk death to come here. I don't. If you compare life here to much of the rest of the world, you'll understand. Even in many of the nicer countries, the locals dream of lives right here in the good old US of A. I'm not saying that, first of all, that there aren't countries that are comparative to the United States and how they do business and so forth. I'm not saying that. I will make arguments that there are less protections in certain senses, but I will also say that the United States' protections are not what they used to be, that's a fair statement. I will say that if you went to Australia or New Zealand or Germany, or maybe the UK, maybe England, say for example, you might be prone to find something similar to what you find in the United States. But the important realization has to be that the United States is one of the freest countries on earth. Some people argue to a fault. We literally are faulty in just how much freedom that we have in this country. I don't know that I would go there. I think maybe in some senses I would say that we have a little bit more freedom than a lot of people know how to deal with. But I don't know that I would consider that a thing that I would count, a place where we're faulty in how we live here. But what I will say is this. Literally, you have people coming to the United States and have had for, decades, maybe a couple, almost 2 centuries now. You've had people coming to the United States, and they did that in order to escape, in many instances, their homelands. And here's the thing. I said this, I think, probably in the other video that I discussed at the beginning of this one. And I said, look, it's not that these people really necessarily wanted to leave their homelands, but they realized that they were not going to get the same sort of deal where they came from as they get here. I think a lot of people who come, for example, from India, right, I think if they had their choice, they'd stay in India. Right? They come to the United States because they see a freedom here that they cannot have at home. It's not that they don't love their home country. It's not that probably the Cuban people don't love their home country. It's not that the Venezuelan people don't love their own country. It's not that Colombian people don't love their own country. It's not that people from China don't love their country. It's not that people from North Korea probably in many regards don't love their country. It's that those people look at what they are able to do in the framework of their country and they say, yep, can't really accomplish much here. And in some instances, it's literally so bad. I think her name was Yun Mi Pak, and she was on Tim Pool's podcast, and then there was he also had a Cuban counter-revolutionary of Castro, right? Counter-revolutionary from Castro, and these two people talked about the fact that they really didn't even know what was available, what was out there, because they hadn't ever seen it really. The Cuban guy may have been able to make the argument that he did, and that's part of the reason that he made the decisions that he made. And I'm going to point something out, and that is that both of those individuals and the lady from China, I forget her name now, that Tim had on his podcasts at various times, all of these people talk about the idea that the United States is not inching but moving quite rapidly towards the very same sort of thing that you see in each of their home countries. And the thing about it is, in every case, what they say is, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't. If I wanted my home country, I'd live there. I'd go there. I'd go back. Now, of course, unfortunately, in many of those countries, if you go back to that country, you're probably going to suffer some sort of wrath as a result of doing that, unless they can use you as propaganda, right? Unless you're willing to talk down the United States as a result. But the reason, and First of all, I'll acknowledge that this is not something that just happens with the United States, okay? It happens with a bunch of countries around the world. Canada gets a bunch of refugees, a bunch of people who just really don't want to be in their home country anymore for various things that they can't do. Britain alike, right? And so I'm not saying that it only happens in the United States, but I will point something out. Literally, when most people talk about where they would rather be than their home country, if they have any idea what might be available, they will talk about the United States as certainly top 5, often top 3, generally top 1. I would argue in terms of where they can go, because as everyone has said, look, I had $50, I had $100, I had $150, I had $250 in my pocket. That's what I had when I walked in the country, when I came in the country. And now, maybe they're not rich, but they have relatively solid, reasonably nice lives here in the United States, where they don't have to worry about persecuting or people talking about torturing their relatives, and they can talk about whatever they want to talk about, even if it's odious to a lot of the people around them. And this is why people come here. This is why come, right? This is why. It's not some accident that so many people around the world come to the United States. It's totally intentional. In fact, many of them, so the young lady from Korea had to go through China, I think maybe had to go through South Korea, and finally found her way in the United States, the one from North Korea. And many of these people basically do hip-hop around the world to various places and finally end up in the United States after much, much work to get there. Okay? And I'll say what a lot of people are probably thinking. That includes people from Mexico and people from South America. A lot of them will hopscotch through various places in order to get to the United States various ways. So what I want for people to understand is this. Even the nicer countries around the world are not as nice in many regards as places like the United States. Again, are there others? Yeah, there are others. But if you look at what's going on in Australia right now, you will understand why many people say that the United States is the place to be and not somewhere like Australia. That all having been said, like I say, I think you can kind of get a grasp based on what I'm saying why I would ask the question, why come, on top of asking the questions, why leave? And obviously I'm talking about why come to the United States. I need to go ahead and wrap up now, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Monday, the 10th of August of 2021. As I say, my brother's birthday. Tomorrow will be Tuesday, the 11th of August of 2021. Thank you for everybody who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. The subject today today has been Why Come? Tomorrow we're going to talk about the subject of American warts, because I think we need to discuss the idea that America the Beautiful has had some times and some things happen that maybe weren't so beautiful. And I think we need to talk about that tomorrow, so I'm going to take the time to discuss that a little bit. Hope you're having a good day today. Today is Tuesday, and hopefully we will see you again on Wednesday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Tuesday, the 10th of August of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.